Tonight, mystery and horror await you. There's no formal introduction tonight. Instead, I have a request. Believe it or not, whether you think it's a legend or truth, we live in a treacherous world, a realm where sinister practices can have dire repercussions. Keep your distance. You've sought the knowledge and researched. Well, now you have it. But steer clear of these cursed volumes, even if the danger might just be a possibility. But be warned, entering this realm is not the same as leaving. The notorious Necronomicon is our focus tonight. Friends, our episode today tackles the topic many of you have eagerly anticipated. Expect an episode loaded with mysteries, oddities, and dangers. An absolutely controversial discussion. Today's subject is a book, but not just any book. It continues to stir considerable debate among various religions and cultures, both in the East and the West. A legendary book from which numerous others have been derived. Yet, the original remains concealed without any clear trace, and the identity of its original author still remains a mystery to this day. So, my friends, take a deep breath and prepare yourselves. The terrifying tome of the Necronomicon. Our exploration starts in the 8th century AD in Sana'a, Yemen. Here we meet the Yemeni poet Abdullah al-Hathrad, known as the Mad Arab Poet. This poet, notorious for his heavy drinking and use of narcotics of the era, was deeply fascinated by ancient beings believed to have inhabited the earth before humans. He was convinced that remnants of these beings were still hidden in the corners of the earth, especially in ancient ruins, which led him on expeditions across all ancient maps and sites to find these creatures, which he revered as sacred. He traveled to Iraq, visiting the ancient Babylon and the timeless ruins of Mesopotamia, and then to Egypt, drawn to the pyramids, which reinforced his beliefs about ancient beings. He then spent 10 years alone in the desert of Rub al-Khali, or Empty Quarter, before finally settling in Damascus, where he began to write the infamous book, the Necronomicon, which means in Arabic the sounds of insects at night, which the ancient Arabs believed were the voices of jinns and demons active at night. In this book, Abdullah documented his encounters with strange creatures and what he learned from them about the secrets of black magic and its oddities, which we will delve into later in our episode. The death of Abdullah al-Hathrad is closely linked to the very book he wrote. According to narratives and other books that mention the Necronomicon, Abdullah misused the knowledge he gained from the demons and creatures he met, which led to his demise. According to the historian Ibn Khalkan, from the 13th century, a monster from his book appeared suddenly and killed him. In some stories, it's said that this beast devoured Abdullah in front of eyewitnesses who were shocked and horrified by the scene. Intriguing. Here in 738 AD, the life of the Mad Arab Poet ended, as Howard Lovecraft later referred to him. Lovecraft, who popularized the book of Necronomicon and shared many of its secrets in the modern era. These details and the uses of this book are our next topic. What is known about this book? Unlike the magical books that used astronomy and astrology to foresee the future, like the famous Book of Nostradamus, this book discusses ancient entities and creatures that lived on Earth before mankind. Whether it's a jinn or demons, the most notable of these creatures that Abdullah met in his travels is the Cthulhu creature, a mythical being believed to inhabit the depths of the ocean as well as the surface of the earth. According to the book, Abdullah discovered the remains of Iram of the Pillars. And even more, Abdullah mentions in his book that he met the jinn and demons in that city. And from them, he learned magic and managed to go back to the deep past and meet the Cthulhu, who later became the central figure in Lovecraft's books. Abdullah also mentions in the book that the demons taught him how to summon the dead. So, he summoned the ancient dead to learn from them the secrets of hidden history. They told him that some angels fell in love with the daughters of mankind, so they descended from heaven and mated with humans, creating an offspring that ruled the earth for a while, then vanished. This is mentioned in the book of Enoch and Genesis, the most famous of ancient books. According to those who read the book, it is filled with talismans, symbols, and strange geometric drawings, which are recognizable at a glance as magical tools. This magic, although like all black magic, causes harm, there was another purpose for these symbols and talismans. The purpose was to bring back the dead and make them speak to reveal the hidden past. If we delve deeper into this 999-page book, we find names of the foreign, Arabic, Western, and Eastern. These names are of dead people from the beginning of creation. Terrifying. Also, in a chapter of this book, we find the laws of death and its stages and what lies beyond. Of course, all this according to those who were able to read and translate the book, which is what Lovecraft mentioned in his writings later. In the book, we also find pictures and drawings of creatures that we may say are legendary and unreal, as their shapes, according to those who saw them, are weird and scary. But Abdullah confirms in his book that he met them, and he described them accurately, and even painted them to prepare everyone who saw them that they are real. The scariest part is what was mentioned about the outer cover of the book. Can you imagine what it was? Listen carefully. According to those who have seen the book and the frequent mentions up to what Lovecraft said, the outer cover of the book is made of the skin of the dead. Yes, as you heard, the skin of the dead. As for where did the skin come from, nothing was reported about this. So you can speculate on the answer, my friends. Of course, many of you were alarmed by the mention of a foreign writer in the middle of a book about an Arab poet from past centuries. Well, I will tell you in detail how the book, or even the idea of the book, reached one of the most prominent writers of horror stories and mythical creatures. According to most articles, and one of them documented it with a letter written by Lovecraft himself to the American writer Clark Ashton Smith, telling him about the details of his findings in this book. The book was first translated in 950 AD by Theodore Velitas to the Greek language, where it acquired its common name in the West as the Book of the Dead Necronomicon. This copy was burned by Patriarch Michael I in 1050 because of the harm it caused to everyone who saw it, until it reached the point of madness. The translation of the Arabic book was repeated, but this time it was translated into Latin. In 1228, a priest named Olaus Wormius translated the Arabic version, but the then great Pontiff Gregory IX also banned the Greek and Latin copies and burned all copies he had obtained, but a single copy survived the cremation, was reportedly found in the ancient library of the Vatican. This time, the copy was owned by an English magician named Dr. John Dee. In 1586, this magician, with the help of his assistant Edward Kelly, translated the book into English for the first time. But the copy was not fully printed by any publishing house, and the original was kept in a library in Oxford, England. This copy was grabbed by one of the most famous magicians of the modern era, Aleister Crowley. This magician was influenced by the character of Alhathrad to the point of reincarnation and re-traveled to the places Alhathrad went to. Aleister was introduced to a woman named Sonia Green in 1918, and it is said that he married her. So, Aleister told her about the strange book and the journeys he had taken again. However, the separation was the fate of this duo, after which Sonia met the man who made the Necronomicon book famous. And I think you know who I mean. Howard Lovecraft is one of the most famous writers of horror story books of the 1920s. He was seeking to rewrite the Necronomicon book in full, but he did not get the translated version. Instead, he got the details from Sonia, which he mentioned in more than 18 of his most famous stories. And the human hero in his stories was the mad Arab Abdullah al-Hathrad, and his legendary hero was undisputedly the creature of Cthulhu that we mentioned earlier. Lovecraft's work provoked many controversies and discussions. This led to many other writers requesting Lovecraft to allow them to use his characters in their works. And of course, Lovecraft agreed to fully enjoy the hype caused by him. One of the most famous books based on the famous Lovecraft book, Necronomicon, is a book called Simon Necronomicon by an unidentified writer called Simon. Lovecraft died in 1937 of delayed diagnosis of bowel cancer. The delay was not the result of a medical error, but listen to the following. The man whose writings were inspired by one of the scariest books and was the most famous writer of the scary horror stories was afraid of doctors. This fear led him not to consult any doctor despite the excruciating pains that he suffered, to die a month after his diagnosis of the disease. And so the life of Lovecraft ended, and what he wrote remained an inspiration and ambiguity for the decades that followed. Well, a mysterious book and its subject is dangerous, and its spread is wide. Therefore, religions must have a say in it. This is what we will provide next. As for the Islamic opinion, it is what will lead us to the shocking point. Let's see. Magic has existed since immemorial, and most religions dealt with its subject. So a book that revolves entirely around magic, religions must have an opinion about it. We start with Judaism. We did not find any opinion from the Jewish rabbis about this book, but we did not find a mention of it in the first place. Although many articles and interpretations of the Necronomicon book have somehow linked it to the most famous books of ancient Jewish magic. And I am here speaking, of course, about the Kabbalah, the book that we will address in our next episodes. Let's move to Christianity. Do you remember what I told you about Pope Gregory IX's burning of all the copies translated, and the Patriarch Michael I before him? This is a clear and explicit indication of the Christian religion's prohibition of this book and its awareness of all the dangers that the book has caused to those who have read it. What's weird is the Islamic religion's opinion of the book and its content. It is known that magic in all its forms is absolutely forbidden by Muslims. Strange thing that Islamic religion dealt with many books that dealt with the subject of black magic and its uses, most notably the book Shams al-Marif, known for its controversial content about black magic. And it contains incantations and symbols that may lead to psychological and physical harm, which led to the emergence of a fatwa prohibiting this book if in terms of reading, printing, or even handling it. Indeed, most Arab and Islamic countries prevented the printing of this book and its publication, as well as other books of black magic. But unlike Shams al-Marif or other magic books, we have not found any mention of the Book of Necronomicon, and Muslim scholars have not mentioned it absolutely, and nothing has been forbidden about it. Simply because there is no information about this book, not even a single one, regardless of the rule of Islam that we mentioned earlier about magic. But this book in particular was not mentioned. But no Arabic version has been found, although according to Lovecraft, its writer is Arabic. According to Lovecraft, the Arabic versions have disappeared totally. But where are they? Did it surprise you? Then I will tell you a novel that will shock you. And this may really be the truth. Who knows? According to more than one article and more than one site, Lovecraft reportedly sent a letter to the American producer and composer Willis Conover telling him that the Book of Al-Azif, or Ake Necronomicon, in the Western countries is entirely his imagination, as there is no character called Abdullah al-Hathrad, but it is a character written by Lovecraft. and the name Al-Hathred came from the name of the Lovecraft family, which is derived from the name Hazard. In fact, Lovecraft named the character in his book Abdul al-Hazred, and with the frequent use and linguistic corrections, the name became Abdullah al-Hathred to add more realism to the book. And according to Lovecraft, the name Necronomicon came up to him in a dream. And the idea of the whole book came after reading the Arabian Nights book by Andrew Lang. Interestingly, Lovecraft was 5 years old when he read this book and created the myth of Al-Hathred and his book. All according to Lovecraft's confesses. A little research shows that it could be just a fabrication. For example, Lovecraft's statement that Olaus Wormius the priest translated the book in 1228 into Latin is not true, because simply Olaus was a 17th century Danish physicist who had nothing to do with mythology and mystery at all. Another thing that proves the confusion around this book is the English magician John Dee, where Lovecraft's letter stated that he was the first to translate the book into English. But in fact, he was an advisor to Queen Elizabeth I and was known as a mathematician and chemist. When speaking about the translated copies of the book, Lovecraft mentioned Miskatonic University in an area called Arkham. But in reality, the university and its location are purely from Lovecraft's imagination and exist only in his stories. And yet, we find many opinions saying that the book is real. For example, they ask where the name of Necronomicon came from, and what about the trips in the Arab world and the empty quarter dessert? Questions that remain unanswered. They believe that no one can know in all these details without visiting the place more than one time. And even more, some sources have confirmed that the only original version of this book is in the Vatican, in a very secured library, which access is strictly forbidden to reach. But what Lovecraft stated in a letter recognizing the reality of the book satisfied many skeptics of the issue of superphenomena and former beings whom he called the Old One's Eye, the Ancients, leaving the door wide open for research, speculation, and imagination. So my friends, this is what we were able to reach about Necronomicon book. The book that raised many questions and was, and still raises, of a lot of controversy. And a lot of questions were raised about it, and I am waiting for your opinion and answers in the comments. Is this book just the imagination of a writer influenced by Arabic mythology books, such as 1001 Nights and others, and even drew a whole world and history of a book with mythical creatures? And if Necronomicon really exists, and Abdullah al-Hathred is a real character and not from the writer's imagination, this would be more complicated. Is it possible that the crazy poet really used the magic of demons and made the corpses speak, and knew about the past of terrifying creatures, as represented in the original version of the book? And if it were all true, where is the original Arabic version on which the whole story is based? Is it true what is rumored that the Vatican keeps it a complete secret? And most importantly, in light of the timid circulation of religions regarding black magic and talisman, and the books used in these practices, there is always a vague sign to avoid these worlds, without any confirmation or denial of their truth. Are there people of our time that have reached the hidden truth of Necronomicon and other books, and found the keys to magic and harmful acts that hurt many witnesses and victims? No one knows.